right, let's get ready to dive into a world of pure terror, folks. Today we're tackling Splatterhouse.
Yeah, we're going deep.
Yeah, most people just think it's just some crazy beat 'em up with tons of blood and guts, right?
Yeah, there's a lot more to it.
Oh, absolutely.
Like way more than you'd expect.
So we're going to unpack all that.
We are.
So to start off, like, who is this Rick Taylor guy? He's not your average hero.
No, not at all. He's like this college student, right?
Right.
And he ends up frant in this creepy place called West Mansion.
Oh, West Mansion.
Yeah, it's got this dark history, rumors of really bad experiments.
Ugh, I hate experiment.
And that's where things get really messed up.
Well, the terror mask, right? Like, that changes everything.
Absolutely, the terror mask.
It brings him back from the dead.
It does.
Gives him crazy strength.
Oh, yeah. But it's not all good.
But it's got a dark side.
Yeah, it's definitely not all sunshine and roses with this mask.
So wait, you're saying there's like a psychological horror element to this?
There's this whole question, is Rick even in control?
Oh, wow.
Or is this mask like calling the shots?
And he's trying to save his girlfriend.
He is. That's the whole thing.
Jennifer.
Yeah, Jennifer's trapped in the mansion too.
Oh, man.
So he's got to fight to save her.
But the mask is like, let's just destroy everything.
Yeah, it's constantly whispering in his ear, urging him towards violence and mayhem.
Oh, I hate
It's
whispering.
bad influence.
Now, earlier you mentioned that West Mansion is like, it's not just a setting.
It's very...
like a character.
Exactly. It's like this living nightmare.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's always changing, shifting.
Whoa.
And it's spawning these horrible creatures.
What?
It all goes back to this Dr. West, the guy who owned the mansion.
Oh, right.
He was obsessed with pushing the limits, science, morality, the whole thing.
Oh, so he was like a mad scientist.
Pretty much.
So, wait, are you saying the mansion itself is like evil?
Think of it more like a reflection of what's going on inside Rick. As he goes deeper into the mansion, he's going deeper into his own darkness.
That's deep.
The mansion and the creatures, they're like manifestation of the power he's wielding.
That's kind of freaky.
It is.
So it sounds like there's actually like some thought required in this game.
There is. It's not just mindless fighting.
Oh, really?
You actually have choices to make. Like, as you go through the mansion, you'll come across branching paths.
So there's different ways to go.
There are. You can explore different areas, face different challenges.
Whoa, so it's not just a straight line, beat 'em up.
Nope. You can find hidden stuff, different enemies,
So you can like explore?
Exactly. And that makes you want to play it again to see what you missed.
Okay, so we got this terrifying mansion, a hero fighting his own demons, a sentient mask pushing him towards violence. This is pretty intense stuff.
It is.
But what about the enemies? What kind of creatures are we talking about here?
Well, Splatterhouse is definitely not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, I bet.
You're going to see some seriously messed up stuff.
Like what?
You've got your mutated zombies, giant blobs of flesh, all sorts of nightmarish creatures.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. But it's not just about shock value.
Oh, okay.
These creatures, they represent something, like the transformation and corruption that's happening to Rick. It's all tied together.
So these enemies, they're not just mindless punching bags.
Not at all. Each one, they have different attacks, weaknesses.
So you got to like think about how to fight them.
Exactly. You have to adapt your fighting style, be strategic.
Okay.
And then there are the bosses.
Oh, yeah. I bet those are extra terrifying.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking massive, grotesque creatures. They're like major challenges in the game.
So they're not just bigger versions of the regular enemies.
Nope. They have unique mechanics, special ways to beat them.
So you actually have to use your brain a little bit.
You do. It's not just button mashing. You have to think, be strategic.
Okay, I'm starting to see why people love this game so much.
Yeah, it's got a lot going on.
It's more than just a bloody mess. It's like an actual game with depth.
It is. It blends the action with puzzles and strategy.
Wow, I'm kind of impressed. So tell me more about these bosses. What makes them so memorable?
Well, besides being terrifying to look at, they each represent something bigger,
Like what?
Like themes from the game. For example, in one level, you fight a giant mutated fetus.
What? A giant what?
Yeah, fetus. Pretty messed up, right?
That's pretty disturbing.
It is, but it makes you think.
About what?
About Rick's transformation. He's becoming something monstrous, less than human. The fetus, it's like a twisted birth, a parody of life.
Oh, wow.
It adds a whole other level to the game.
So it's like the horrors he faces are reflections of his internal struggles.
Exactly. Splatterhouse is constantly blurring the lines between the physical and the psychological.
So it makes you question, like, what's real?
Yeah, and what's the price of Rick's transformation?
Okay, this is getting pretty deep. I'm definitely intrigued. But before we get too lost in this world of terror, let's take a break.
Okay, sounds good.
We'll be back in a bit to dive even deeper into Splatterhouse.
Can't wait. All right, so we're back and ready to jump back into Splatterhouse. You know, before the break, we were talking about how those enemies, they're like reflections of what's going on inside Rick.
Yeah, you know that giant fetus boss we talked about? That one's going to stick with me for a while.
Oh, yeah, that's a tough one.
But it makes you wonder, right? Like, how much control does Rick actually have? Is he really making these choices, or is the mask, kind of pulling the strings?
That's what I love about this game. It never really tells you for sure. It just throws you right into that messed up situation. Imagine it. You're wearing this mask, right?
Yeah.
It's giving you all this power, but it's also whispering these dark thoughts in your ear. How do you know what's you and what's the mask?
Whoa. I never thought of it like that.
Yeah, it's deep.
So it's really exploring the dark side of people, like the stuff we try to hide, but it might come out if things got bad enough.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so scary. It's not just jump scares and gore. It's this psychological torment that Rick is going through.
So this game, it actually makes you, think.
It does. It's not what you expect, right? A beat 'em up that makes you think about identity, free will, the dangers of power. It's crazy.
That's wild. We were talking about those different paths you can take.
Uh-huh.
Do they change how the game ends? Like, does Rick's fate change?
Well, the main story, that stays the same.
Okay.
But the paths you choose, they give you different challenges and rewards. You might find, like, a secret weapon down one path or a different kind of enemy down another.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so you can experience the mansion in different ways.
So it's not just about picking the best route every time. You got to, think on your feet and make choices.
You got it. It's about adapting and overcoming, just like Rick.
I'm really starting to understand why people still talk about this game. It's not just like a shock fest. It's a really well-made horror experience.
Right, and don't forget about the atmosphere. Splatterhouse nails the atmosphere. It's dark, oppressive, the music is creepy, and all those sounds, they get under your skin.
Man, you're really making me feel like I'm there.
That's the goal. They didn't just want to show you horror. They wanted you to feel it.
That's a little too real for me.
It's effective, though. It pulls you in.
So tell me more about these environments. What makes them so creepy?
Well, West Mansion is a labyrinth. It's got secret passages, hidden rooms, creepy decorations. It's like this decaying maze that just sucks you in.
And it's not just like a random haunted house.
No way. Every detail is designed to make you uncomfortable. Blood splattered everywhere, flickering lights, weird artwork. You can see the mansion closing in on you, just like it's closing in on Rick's sanity.
Okay, so if the enemies represent Rick's internal struggles, do the environments play a role in that too?
Oh, absolutely. There's this one level, it's like this fleshy cavern.
Fleshy?
Yeah, filled with organs and like bodily fluids. It's like being inside some giant monster.
That's messed up.
I know, right? But it makes sense when you think about it.
How so?
Well, it's like his body itself is becoming monstrous.
Because of the mask?
Yeah, the mask is corrupting him, changing him.
This game is seriously dark. We've talked a lot about the horror and the psychological stuff, but what about just like the gameplay? Does it still hold up?
It totally does. The fighting is fast and brutal. You really feel the impact of every hit.
Nice.
You can punch, kick, use weapons, whatever it takes to survive.
So it's not just button mashing.
Nah, you gotta be smart. Time your attacks, dodge, use your surroundings. The boss fights especially, you gotta plan ahead.
Speaking of weapons, what kind of stuff does Rick get to use?
Oh, you know the classics. 2x4s, meat cleavers, shotguns.
Sweet.
It wouldn't be Splatterhouse without some good old-fashioned brutality.
You know what? I think I'm starting to see why this game was so groundbreaking back then. It was pushing the limits of what games could be.
For sure. It really paved the way for a whole generation of horror games that mixed action with real psychological depth.
So what do you think is Splatterhouse's biggest legacy? The gore, the atmosphere, the themes?
That's a tough one. I think it's the way it challenges you to face your own darkness.
Whoa.
It doesn't give you easy answers. It makes you think. It makes you ask yourself, what would I do in this situation?
That's a heavy question for a game that's known for being so violent.
Right. But that's what makes it so special. It uses the gore and the violence to explore some really profound ideas.
I'm really glad we took this deep dive into Splatterhouse. I had no idea it was so much more than just a bloody brawler.
Yeah, it's a hidden gem, for sure.
All right, let's take this one step further and really unpack the final layer of this game. All right, so we're back. And I gotta say, after talking about all these fleshy caverns and monstrous transformations, I'm feeling a little uneasy. It really makes you think, Like, if Rick is constantly fighting all these external horrors, is he also fighting a losing battle against the darkness inside himself?
That's the big question, isn't it? Is Rick a good guy forced to do terrible things, or is he just giving in to something that was always there? And the game, it plays with that. It makes you, the player, part of his downfall.
So it's not just about saving Jennifer and beating the bad guys. It's about the choices Rick makes, the path he takes through all this darkness. But what happens when the line between hero and monster gets so blurred that you can't even tell the difference anymore?
That's where the real horror is, I think. It's that mental torture of a guy losing himself to this power he can't control. Imagine, you're trapped in that mask, feeling it twitch your thoughts and actions. Could you resist, or would you just give in?
Man, that's some heavy stuff. Now I'm really seeing how deep this game goes. It's not just about the blood and guts. It's about, human nature and how easily power can corrupt us.
Exactly, and that's why it still resonates today. It taps into those primal fears, our fascination with violence, that struggle between good and evil that's inside all of us.
We've talked a lot about the psychology and stuff, but what about the ending? Does it give us any answers? Or does it leave us with that unsettling feeling of not knowing?
Splatterhouse doesn't really do easy answers or happy endings. Just like life, it leaves you with questions and a sense of unease. But that's what makes it so powerful, makes you think, draw your own conclusions.
So it's not just sitting back and watching the story unfold. It's like an interactive exploration of morality, of what happens when we make certain choices. But how does that translate into a fun game? It sounds pretty intense.
Well, even with all the gore and psychological stuff, it's still a blast to play. The combat is visceral, the levels are challenging, and the atmosphere, man, it just sucks you in.
It's funny. For a game that's so notorious for its violence, we haven't really talked about the gore that much. Was it really that shocking back in the day?
Oh, it definitely pushed the boundaries. I mean, it's graphic and in your face, but it's never just for show. It's there to show how brutal Rick's transformation is, how horrific this world he's in really is.
So it's not just there to gross people out. It actually has meaning.
Yeah, it's meant to make you uncomfortable, to make you think about your own limits. It's a reminder of the monstrous stuff that's happening both inside Rick and in the mansion itself.
I'm starting to see why this game has become such a classic. It's hard to even put it in a box, It's a beat-em-up, a horror game, a psychological thriller, all mixed together.
It's a testament to what video games can do, even with all the blood and guts. It tells a compelling story, explores complex themes.
I gotta say, this deep dive has been a real eye-opener. I came in expecting a mindless gore fest, but I'm leaving with a whole new appreciation for Splatterhouse. It's a work of art, really.
That's what these deep dives are all about, right? We dig deeper, uncover the hidden layers, and find the meaning behind the things that fascinate us.
So as we leave the blood-soaked halls of West Mansion and take off that terror mask, we're left with one final, chilling thought. How much of the monster is made, and how much is already inside us, just waiting to come out?
That's a question we all have to answer for ourselves. But maybe Splatterhouse can serve as a warning, a reminder that the line between hero and monster can be pretty thin.
That's a pretty intense note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this journey into Splatterhouse, folks. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and remember, sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones we create ourselves.